Where did you trip around to, man?
Oh, I'd go to Bali and I'd go a lot to Coolangatta because Coolangatta had the best waves. Michael Peterson and Peter Townend and Rabbit Bartholomew and all the big surfers come from Coolangatta, mostly Tweed Heads, fucking, what's the name of that place? Burleigh Heads, Kirra, Greenmount, all them great surfing spots, all the way back down to Byron Bay, even Byron Bay, all the way up. I think Australia's got the best surfing coast in the world from how big it is. The East Coast is the biggest surfing area in the world for how many surf spots there are. And that's why so many Australians are in the top 20. You know, like 10 Australians are in the top 20 on the world circuit. They always have been because, like when I was young, we were really good at tennis. Australians were really good at tennis. And that's because every village, every town, every Kirrawee, Miranda, Caringbah, Bundeena, anywhere, wherever you lived, had a tennis court. Everybody played tennis. So that's why we were the world's best at tennis back in the 50s and 60s, because everybody played tennis. It's not like that now.
One rad moment in time, groovy dude.
It was the time I went to Sandon Point, and I went with Noel Ralston and John Edney, their names were. And we went in a combi wagon. I think it was Noel's combi wagon, and it was about 12 feet, which is pretty big for Sandon Point, and it's a bit like Cronulla Point. And it has a big drop and a really, really corally reef, hard reef. And I went out and I surfed there for I think I surfed a good 2 hours out there. I was having a ball, even though it was big. You can paddle around on points because the wave breaks from shallow to deep, so you can always paddle around in the deep spot. That's why I like points better than beaches. But the combi wagon disappeared, and I thought, what happened? Why's the combi wagon gone? But I just kept surfing anyway. And then it reappeared, and I come back in, and one of the guys was in a sling. I said, what in the hell? He said, yeah, we've been to hospital. He said, John Edney, nearly drowned. He dislocated the shoulder in one of the waves, picked him up and dropped him. And I didn't know I was out there surfing, but some guy saved his life and brought him back in. All this while I was out there and didn't see a thing. And then they took him to hospital, cut his wetsuit out with a pair of scissors and everything, and reset his shoulder, and he come back in plaster, sitting in the car. I didn't know a thing about it, so that's a day that I will never forget. That was really strange. But there's been plenty of days that I've really enjoyed surfing. I remember surfing Drambar when there was a real lot of guys out, and I was a little bit further out than all the locals, and I was picking up all the big waves, and they were all scattering, paddling to get past to try and get the next one. So there I was, a person who didn't know anything about the place, and I was getting all the best waves, and that sort of excited me. I was only 18, 19. That's where Peter Townend and all them good surfers surf, so I wasn't amongst, shit surfers. But I was very confident when I was young, whatever I did. I don't know why, but I just was. I think the confidence come from because I wasn't academically any good at much things, so sport was my go. It was where I felt most comfortable.
How's the lifestyle, man?
Yeah, well, a lot of hippies surfed. A lot of hippies loved surfing, but a lot of hippies didn't surf. But it was sort of like a cult back then, with the woody wagon and the boards, and everybody went surfing together, and they used to get these big mouths and catch them straight. It's when the shortboard come in the 70s, it got more competitive for waves, but back in the early 60s, you'd see 10 guys on a wave and it didn't matter because they all went straight and stuff anyway, you know, most of them. So, and everybody surfed back in the 60s. Everybody had a surfboard. I don't know why. Just seemed like that, you know. When coming across on the ferry, it was just so, they had so many surfboards they used to have to put them on the roof because they couldn't fit them in the ferry. There was too many people and too many boards, and a lot would paddle across and a lot would come around by car. So the place used to get really, really packed out. But I'd surf the little point, and it was my point. I lived there, and amongst all the locals, I was probably the most continuous person that took it more seriously than anyone else. So it was my place. You know, that's where I was best at. When I went elsewhere, I wasn't so good, you know. But I was really good on my own break. You know, I knew it really well.
Did your parents dig your style?
They never ever come and watched me. They never ever come and seen. I think one time I went when they come and watched me when I was 12 or something, and I lost my board, and my mother was screaming, "Get his board," because they didn't have leg ropes, and then Dave thought I was going to drown. I just swam to my board and picked it up, but you know, that's the only time I remember my parents ever being there, ever coming round to the point to watch us surf. My father was more into football and things. Surfing was just a distraction, he thought, you know, I think. I did find a dead body going surfing around there when I was 15. And there was nobody there because the ferries couldn't run because of school, so all the kids were around surfing the wharf, and I didn't know. I walked around the point with me board and me dog. I walked past this body, didn't see it, and I couldn't find anyone out in the surf, and my father didn't want me to surf at 12 or 13 by myself out in the middle of the bay. So, and when I seen all the kids surfing the wharf, I had to go back around the point and tell me father, who was the ranger, that I was going to the wharf to surf. And the boards were really heavy, so it was quite hard. But going back, I was nearly back about 100 yards from getting off the point, and I turned around and I seen my dog licking at something, and it was a dead woman lying in about 6 inches of water. She'd drowned that night. She'd wandered off and fell in the water. I think she was a little bit crazy, I think. My husband was a drunk, so Bundina was pretty rough back in them days. It's me, Johnny. I'm home.